This is the 18th season of Bass Talk Live. With your host, Matt Pangrac. BTL is brought to you by Lawrence, Bass Cat Boats, AFCO, Strike King Lures, Sunline, Big Bite Baits, Spro, X-Zone Lures, Gamakatsu, The Bass Tank, Denali Rods, and Pro Guide Batteries.
BTL, coming at you!
Good morning and welcome to another exciting edition of BTL Bass Talk Live, where we are going to talk about bass fishing Monday, August 8th. We got all sorts of stuff going on in the wide world of professional bass fishing. There's a slugfest, or as the press release after the first day said, a catch fest going on at the BPT on Cayuga in New York. Justin Lucas leading after the first day. Michael Neal leading after the first day. His group, if you want to know more about either of them, they happen to also finish 1-2 in the pro circuit Angler of the Year standings. And now they're leading their respective days. But lots of 4 to 6, 5 pound, a couple 6 pound largemouth out there at Cayuga, catching them a myriad of different ways. And actually texted with a couple of the guys over this. It's still interesting to me how many of these guys still qualify how big their best 5 were, even though that's completely meaningless in this format now. So 130 something fish for 120 something pounds, but 5 for 27. So right now you've got Lucas and Wheeler who are battling it out as we talk live on a Monday morning, and one of those guys is going to end up burning probably about 200 pounds of fish and then start from zero in a couple days. So just one of the interesting wrinkles in that format. Obviously, if you win, you go on to the final round. But you want to talk about numbers, you want to talk about Angler of the Years, you want to talk about requalifying. We will get into that in the second half of the show. I have printouts, I have scenarios. Right now, it is an absolute, no one knows what's going on between the Opens qualification for the Elite Series this year, the Pro Circuit qualification for the BPTs, and the decision that possibly some of the BPT anglers will have to make about the Opens, or Pro Circuit anglers will have to make about the Opens or the BPTs. We'll get into that in the second half of the show, because we've got a guy who is in the thick of an Angler of the Year race for the second time in 3 years, and that would be Tennessee's David Mullins. And let's bring him in now. Have you been on BTL before, David, or is this your first BTL appearance? Yeah, I think you've been on before, haven't you?
I think this is my first time.
That's criminal. We should definitely needed to have you on before there. Let me bump your audio up here just a little bit. Thank you for getting up early and jumping on BTL before you head to the next to last stop on the Elite Series on Oahe in South Dakota. I know there's probably a lot of prep involved when you have to go to the surface of the moon for a bass tournament.
Yeah, I don't know how much prep's involved. It's just going to take a lot of diesel to get there. So, I think I'm leaving next Wednesday in a couple days to get up there. So we're looking forward to wrapping the season up.
You guys are taken out of a completely different end of the lake than you did the last time you went there. I believe it was in 2017, 2018, somewhere around there. You had a 45th place finish on Oahe, but prep for this tournament, just the way that lake lays out, there's no way to even get to some of the areas where a lot of guys fish the first year, because there's no marinas, no gas, nothing. It's just your kind of whatever your radius is, and that lake is so big. So do you think it's going to fish similar to the way it did 5 years ago, or is it a completely different tournament based on the home base for you guys this time around?
I don't know anything about it as far as where we're going out of. I don't know what the change is with the lake, so I'm not key. I'm sure there'll be some similarities because it's a smallmouth venue, but I don't really have a clue on how it lays out 70, 80 miles away from where we took off last time. So,
So
last time the key was, a lot of the guys just ran their boat till they got about a half a tank and then started fishing and ran back. So, because it wasn't anywhere to get gas. So I'm not sure how it's going to lay out.
not a big prep guy then. Like you don't have like all the numbers and research and Google Earth and all that. It's show up and figure it out.
Yeah. I've never really prepped for any tournament ever.
Really?
Mm-mm. Occasionally, like if I go to a tidal water, I will look at some Google Earth. We go to Winyah or Sabine River or something like that. I might look at Google Earth, but other than that, I've never looked at it.
So what's your strategy then? I'm intrigued by this, David, because of, like I said, you've been in the AOI race 2 of the last 3 years. You've made a lot of classics. So new fishery on the schedule, you see it coming up. Do you think about it? Do you do anything, or you just show up and say, how can I fish my strengths? Or what's your strategy then on a new fishery that you haven't been to before?
Just go fishing, really. I mean, you might, if it's someplace new, which heck, far we've been to so many places now,
Mm-hmm.
it's going on 10 years of doing it. We've been to like all these places. And at first I might look and find a tournament that was in a similar time frame and see what it was won on. But for the most part anymore, I never look at anything. I just go.
Do you try to find what your strength is then when you go there, or are you pretty versatile? Like I think of you as a cranker, a power fisherman and a cranker.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's your comfort zone. Is that something that regardless of where you're going, you'll always try to find something in your wheelhouse, or would you consider yourself a fairly versatile angler outside of that?
You got to be versatile. I mean, obviously, I love to crank and wind stuff around, and that's probably my strength. But heck, I love having a spinning rod out and catching smallmouth too. So yeah, I try to find strengths when I'm fishing. I throw a lot of winding stuff, but you got to have either the conditions or the right structure to do that. So it doesn't work everywhere, but I definitely try to look for that. And I think that's probably what I've changed more in the last few years is like I would try to do too many things early on, and now I just kind of like play toward my strengths.
Are you do you fish a lot during your official practices, or are you a grapher who then figures out what you found during the tournament?
It just depends on the tournament. This year we've got a lot of, we had some structured tournaments where all I did was idle. Like I think Lake Fork and Pickwick, I rarely made a cast. Even if I seen them, I just kept going, mark where they're at, keep going. So I spent, 3 days each practice just doing nothing but idling. I think I just changed oil on my boat, and I had 280 hours of running time, but 135 of it was idling hours. So, there's certain places you go to where that's all you do. And, you say we were at Cayuga or something, even though it's not a structured deal, you might just sit there and idle to find isolated grass or grass lines, so just depends on where you're at, on how much I idle.
You think that's what the average weekend club guy sucks at the most, is the ability to sit at the console for hours and not make a cast?
The average person, I don't know what,
I know I have a problem doing that. Like I'll go out like even for an open, right? And I'll be like, okay, I'm graphing today. Well, 45 minutes in, I'm like, oh, well, I got to check that spot. I got to fish that spot. And then you get by the end of the day, but you guys, it seems, will actually sit there. I remember I was doing a deal with Timmy Horton back in the day on Kentucky Lake where I was like documenting his practice for a video. And like legitimately, he didn't get out of the seat for 6 hours. He's like, yeah, you can come out. He's like, it's going to be really boring. He's like, you might, be able to do something on graph settings. I was like, there's no way he's going to sit there. The tournament started in 2 days and not fish. Like he legitimately didn't fish. He made like 10 casts the whole day.
Yeah. I mean, that's what you got to do because like Kentucky Lake, when it was great, it wasn't a matter of finding the one spot. It was just finding more than everybody else found where you had enough places to go to. So, yeah, it didn't matter if you caught them in practice or not. Once you see them and you know what's there, you just mark them and keep going and, you get you a rotation of places you can go through. So, yeah, I don't know. As far as I think the probably the biggest problem with average anglers probably fishes too slow or fishes one spot way too long. Like I'll burn down a bank. If it's a spot out there, I'll fish it for 10, 15 casts, nothing. We'll go on the next one, whereas somebody else might lay out there an hour before they give up on it. So I just think they stay in one area too long.
Man, that seems to be a theme amongst the guys who catch them. We had Michael Neal on. I just had Michael Neal on. He talked about, his back-to-back pro circuit angler of the years, and he said the biggest thing was covering water and finding active fish. That's the key to success. You look at KVD, like Kevin, ruined so many anglers because he was able to move fast efficiently, and everyone was like, dude, I just got to put it on high and burn water. But you look at a lot of top guys, and I'm trying to think, can you think, is there anybody that just is consistently near the top that is just a snail slow pace, methodical, set up camp? Or at that level, it seems like all the guys are burn and turn.
Yeah, I mean, at our level, I think everybody's got the ability just to leave it and go do something else, and I think that's what separates average people from professionals is, time on the water, but just knowing when to give up on it, knowing when your stuff's toast and you need to go looking for other stuff.
Helpful to be on the TVA fisheries and have some of the fisheries around where you grew up in fishing, though, to do that, as opposed to let's do a Bill Lowen in Indiana or Ohio River guys or guys in tough areas. I think it's a lot easier to learn I don't want to say right tournament strategy, but to learn that fish fast effectively and find feeding fish when you're on and have a lot of fisheries near you where you can find multiple active schools based on the conditions and move. Yeah,
and a lot of times, you're not even, in times of year, you're not fishing for schools here. You're fishing for active areas. And I'm sure Michael would say the same thing. But our fish here moves so fast. Everything happens so fast, especially ours, like Cherokee and Douglas. That stuff's almost daily, And then and I've said it 1,000 times. The key to fishing those lakes is you just kind of wake up and see which way the wind's blowing and go with it, and that's the best way to fish those places because nothing you found one day a lot of times will last for the second day. It just they move so quick,
which makes it easier then as you're trying to find fish in 2.5 days across the country because you become comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Yeah, you can't. Yeah, it's a good point. You can't, especially Cherokee, you can't be comfortable there ever because you never know what's going to happen on that place.
That was interesting. That was the first open that I'd fished there this year, and it was like a light switch, especially that time of the year, obviously. But there were 3 distinct bites that happened between the last day of practice, the first day of the tournament, and the second day of the tournament. Mm-hmm. And the guys, my buddies who caught them were the ones that went, "Oh, that didn't work," so I started experimenting. And then when they found it, they were like, dude, you had a bunch of guys that didn't even catch a limit on day 2 and a bunch of guys that were like, dude, I caught 35, 40 keepers. It was the easiest thing. It was the most fun ever. And it was one of the first times that I've been like, man, it's amazing the vast contrast on a fishery where that there's a population of big and solid fish in there. Yeah. The guys who were able to adapt, move, and find the current conditions and take advantage of it really cashed in on that one.
Yeah, I can remember some of the guys that fished the FLW there last time they were there, and I remember talking to Castledine and those guys, and the best practices they ever have, and then the next day the fish were spawning. They went from pre-spawn to spawn in one day. So that's just, they move so quick there.
That's crazy. All right, we are talking with Elite Series Pro David Mullins, who, dude, you've been doing this a decade now. Does it seem like it goes fast? When you talk about that, I remember Brandon was like, well, this is my 13th year doing it. And I was like, holy cow, how did that happen? Mm-hmm. He was the young guy, but 10 years, that's insane, man.
This is my 9th. Next year will be 10.
Close to a decade.
It's definitely goes by really quick.
All right. I mentioned that because you were one of the anglers that came in, 13 you fished the opens, and then 14 was your rookie year, but you went 3 opens. You made the top 10 cut in one of them, so you fished 7 days, and then boom, you're on the Elite Series. Well, they're not going to do that anymore in 2023, beginning then with the 9 tournament qualifying, but when we come back from our first break, I would love to get your take on that, because you were one of the guys who went in it. It's not like you had a vast experience on the FLW tour before that, or had fished 100 opens. I mean, you had won a BFL, you had some success at the local and regional level, but you started out going to a lot of these ponds that you'd never been to. So we'd love to get your take on that when we come back for another live week of BTLs. BTL on a Monday with second place AOYN standings. David Mullins. We'll be back right after this.
Your key to better fishing this season is Elite FS, now available at a new lower price. Get Elite FS 9 today for $9.99, and we'll throw in a C-Map reveal chart, our premium mapping solution, for free. Elite FS works with all state-of-the-art Lowrance sonar, from chirp, side scan, and down scan imaging with fish reveal to high-resolution active target live sonar. Elite FS9 and C-Map reveal. Offer ends August 31st.
The new Puma STS has been redesigned from the ground up. With the angler, design, function, and performance in mind, nothing on this new offering was compromised, and the only thing carried over from the previous version is the name. Based on the Soft Touch series hull that started with the flagship Jaguar, this new model is nimble and performs incredibly well at all speeds with either a 250 or 300 horsepower engine. Featuring a new 96-inch wide-body footprint, this hull measures out at 20 foot 7 inches in length. Industry-leading design coupled with tournament-winning performance. The Puma STS from Basscat. Feel the rush.
We're just about ready to go, ladies and gentlemen. Get in order.
Once again, Drew Cook is in the driver's seat.
When you're catching fish for a living, you can't let a little cold, rain, heat, humidity, or anything else get in the way of a payday. I wear APCO. Any fish, any water.
The KVD 100 Jerkbait. 15 different colors. A perfect combination of roll, wiggle, and flash. Increased castability. 3D eyes. Premium black nickel hooks. KVD. Tie one on. Striking lures.
Are you looking to install your own fishing electronics? Well, the Bass Tank is here to help you. The solution is the Bass Tank Power Harness. It takes the guesswork out of installation. No more voltage issues or interference. Designed by an engineer so that you can get professional results right there in your own garage. Installation done right with the help of the Bass Tank Power Harness. You can feel confident knowing that your installation was done right. The Bass Tank Power Harness. Give us a call or order yours today at thebasstank.com.
Welcome back, BTL on a Monday, talking with Tennessee's David Mullins. It's a very interesting. That's an interesting case study as far as your growth as an angler and kind of like your pyramid, your base, your structure of who you are and how you fish based on where you grew up. I've always thought it's very interesting. A lot of like the guys like take a look at like a Kevin or an Ike. There's like a lot of guys, or Brandon in Idaho. There's a lot of guys who grew up in non-traditional fishing areas who are very good and dominant. Some of the best that have ever played the game in this. Like you could take like even like a Jay Yellis, a Luke Clausen, like out there in like Washington and stuff. I mean, obviously there's a lot of guys, from traditional fishing, but a lot of non-traditional locations, and then a lot of like like I said, you mentioned like a Bill Lowen or the guys who grind, the grinders in areas, and that's all just based on where you grew up and how you fished and kind of who your mentors are. I guess it's just kind of like life, like who you are as a person is based on who raised you and where you were raised.
Yeah, pretty much like how you talk,
Yeah. Before the break, I wanted to talk about you were like a perfect case study for this, David. Elite Bassmaster came out with a press release right before ICAST. It's been talked about a lot now. I had Carl Jacobson on, who just went like straight inspiration for 2 hours. Like I feel like if he ever decides he doesn't want to fish, because he's got like the accent and he's got the story and stuff. He could just hit the motivational. He could be like talking to like Dell Computers. Our next speaker was a professional athlete from, like that's his next calling in life after after he retires from fishing is motivational speaking.
Yeah.
But we had a whole show on the all 9. So now you have to fish all 9 next year in order to qualify for the 2024 Bassmaster Elite Series, which takes out of play the anglers who want to fish one division, Central, Eastern, Southern. And I think you could make a case either way for this. Not going to rehash the whole thing. Go back, listen to that show. You get my thoughts on it. Like I said, 3 things that I think need to be done. Then I'll get your thoughts on it. But I have to preach this. You have to make the payout deeper. If you're making guys spend $40,000 to go across the country, at least give them a chance to break even so they're better prepared when they get to that next step if they do it. You have to have a slight off limits there. It's the opens. Guides, everyone should be able to fish it. Give it a week off limits. That gives a playing field Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, just a week. The guides can still guide. They just miss a couple days. It prevents the camping, also prevents fishery burnout, highlights it for the Chamber of Commerce, and also limit the field to 200 boats because when you get up into that crazy amount of boats, it drastically affects the fishing. At the next step, they're only fishing against 90 to 100 anyway, so you get a better deal. Instead of sitting on spots, you can actually run pat. Anyway, those are my 3 things, David. I preach those because I think that needs to happen for the next year. You came in 2013 and went 49th, 2nd, 26th, and boom, you're on the Elite Series. What do you remember about that? Did you feel like you were prepared? Did you feel like you were in over your head? Did it seem like the right thing at the time?
I really didn't know what to expect. I mean, I was great friends with A-Mark, and, we're sitting – he came up and fished with me a couple times in 2012. And they're 11, somewhere in there, 12, 11. And, we're fishing, and he's like, dude, if you ever want to do it for a living, he's like, you could do it. And I was like, really? And, I'd always thought I had the ability to do it. But, dude, I mean, we grew up blue collar as can be, and, we didn't have an excess of anything. And as far as thinking I could do fishing for a living, I didn't know, like, what it took or if I could, but I just started teaching, high school teaching. And so anyway, A-Mark, they announced the schedule, and like the second tournament was on Douglas, which is my home lake. And at that time I was probably fishing it better than anybody. And, I asked him, I said, well, what about we room together and you fish the opens and we try it. So me and him piled up in that little camper of his, and we went off and fished the opens and qualified my first year, and then me and him roomed together for the first 3 or 4 years that I was on the elites, and and it was an interesting time, and it felt to me it felt like especially my rookie first couple of years, it felt like I was just hanging on to a train that was going wide open, and I was just trying to stay in there with it. But it was definitely extremely learning experience, and it's you have to find your comfort level and about doing everything, whether it be tackle preparation, sleep, just traveling. It's just a whole learning experience for me. It's different than what I finally, what I thought was going to happen, because I thought what was going to happen when I made the elites is like, all right, I'm going to get some companies to give me some reels and rods, and I'm going to get sponsorship and all this. And it's just like, I've been on it. This is my 9th year, and this is the first year that I've had actually people to give me reels. And, I signed a deal with Shimano last fall, and it's been great. And finally got a whole set of lineup of tackle for the first time. So it's just, the public perception about how everything goes, that we get free boats and all this stuff, they really have no clue about how hard it is, how tough it is, and how much you have to sacrifice just to do it. And even when you do sacrifice, it's not like we're getting paid millions of dollars. We're fishing for the same payout that they had in 1997, so it's not like it's a glorious lifestyle, but it can be a good living.
Do you feel like you would have benefited from having more open level tournaments and traveling around the country, not at the $5,000 a tournament price tag? Or
no,
okay.
I probably wouldn't have made it. I mean, first of all, I couldn't afford to do it. I mean, if you're asking my opinion, I don't like the new open format, because for a guy like me, who's blue collar and had a teaching job. There's no way I'm going to be able to take off 9 weeks to do it. So I don't like that. I realize Bassmaster has to do something with the opens because, they'll have 220 boats or whatever they do, and then they've got 80 people on the waiting list. So they've got to do something to obviously supply and demand here. Something's got to give. So you either got to go up on your entry fees and, narrow some people out. But, I don't know what the right or wrong answer is, and I'm sure they're going to take this as a learning year, and they'll go from there. I think it'll be changed again. I think they'll go back to 3, one division. But what it is going to do for the angler that does it is definitely prepare them more for the traveling, the expenses. He's going to be more well-rounded than what I was coming in, if he does that. But again, it's just for a cost for a guy just wanting to make it to the opens to try it. It's just going to be so excessive. Like I said, there's no way that I could have made it doing that. And that's what bothers me about it.
Yeah, do you think there is a right way, or do you think that regardless of what it is, I mean, fishing, if you look at it, has just crazily evolved over the last 50 years since the Ray Scott thing. And then you also take into the account the split and the format changes across the board. Like nothing really stays stable. Like the most stablest thing I think in the history of professional bass fishing is A, the Bassmaster Classic, and B, the Bassmaster Elite Series that started in 2006. Since then, I mean, that's some serious longevity. They've had the invitationals, the top 150s, the tours. I mean, but a lot of stuff has changed over the years. It's like impossible to seem like to find the perfect system. You think that's because there's so many variables in this deal? It's not like a golf deal where it's the same. Like fishing, there's so many variables in this sport.
It could be. I'm not sure. I think Bassmaster needs a stepping tour like the FLW tour on our side, to be honest with you, because I think the Open should qualify you to get in that, and I think that tour qualifies you to get in the elites, and that's the way it should go. And that way, if let's say somebody doesn't re-qualify for the elites, it's been on there 4 or 5 years, and that gives them a home to go to where they can still make a living, where they don't have to go to another organization to do that. So I do think they need a stepping stone that's a high-end tournament with $10,000 payouts that's in between those two. But do they have the means to do it? I'm not sure, but that would be, heck, for like I said, you're getting 280 boats for an Open. I know you can fill up another division somewhere, as far as like a higher end tournament. So, I'd like to see him do something like that.
I want to circle back to something you said before. How did you become friends with Amart?
It was 2000, 2001. I just graduated high school. And even back then, we fished Douglas like religiously all the time. And me and a friend of mine were, I think I had a 17-foot bass tractor, like an 80-some model bass tractor then. And we had fished all night long. And then we used to night fish all the time. And fished all night long. It's already breaking daylight, and we were still catching them. So we got back to the ramp, and again, this is probably the earliest I've ever known Amart to get to the ramp, because it was just now after daylight, and we're strapping everything up on the ramp, and all of a sudden I hear this blaring techno music coming out of the truck, and it was an old Ford Excursion, and it was a purple and white Excursion with a purple Ranger boat. And he backs down beside me, and he starts unhooking his stuff, and we get off the conversation at the ramp, and I didn't know who Aaron Martins was. And, he had a tournament that was in March, and he had a tournament like late April or something like that on Douglas. And, back then you could get info or whatever else. And again, I didn't know who he was, but he's asking we catch him. I said, yeah, we caught a bunch. And I said, I'll be around for a couple of days if you want to go. And like next day, me and him ended up going fishing. Our styles were very similar, because back then I threw a lot of finesse type worm stuff, and that's what he threw. And we became good friends. And I traveled with him a few times at the FLW tournaments, and stayed at his house at the Classic in 03. And it's just we friends ever since. And I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing without his knowledge and encouragement.
Oh, that's good stuff. All right. I don't know how I didn't know that story. Because, I mean, you did the Jersey thing then, and which has been really cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I said, we roomed together for several years, and then he got a camper that was actually a smaller one than what we were actually rooming in. So I ended up sleeping in the truck beside the camper. And in the back of the truck, I got a little cot and slept back there for a couple of years and roughed it. So, yeah, it's a cool story. He's a great guy.
And then kind of piggybacking back off of that, you mentioned you're with the Shimanos now, that you're actually getting reels 9 years into this thing. Do you think that's because the deals don't exist? Is that a combination of you not being proactive over the last years and getting it, or is it, how does that work? Like, why do you think? You've heard a couple guys say this now, that it isn't a major jump sponsorship wise when you do make the elites. Because I mean, dude, you're one of the top 95. Look at, you're on the TV now. You have had massive success doing this.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think the reasoning is behind that, in your opinion?
I guess brand familiarity as far as with an angler, because I'm an unknown person coming out for, out of East Tennessee, that all I fish is Cherokee and Douglas. Now I'm on the Elite Series, and even though you're getting checks and doing okay, it takes several years to build your name up, to build your brand up, and I guess that's when people started calling me. It was the last 3 or 4 years, because, and I've never ever got a deal or anything by reaching out or emailing or calling a company wanting this or that. I've never, and that's so I don't do that anymore. And I think every sponsorship deal I've got is they've reached out to me out of the blue. So that's how it works. So I think it's probably just, being more consistent and, your name getting thrown around a little bit more.
All right, let's get into this AOI deal. You've got a tall task at hand to track down Brandon, especially with the last 2 fisheries you guys are going to. Do you care about that? Do you look at it? Do you take more risks, or is it kind of like your fishing strategy where you just show up and fish and whatever happens, happens?
You just go and fish. I mean, what am I going to do? How can I fish any harder than what I already do? I mean, everybody out there should be like, I'm going to fish the hardest I can. Nobody's going to outfish me today. And, that's the way your attitude should be. And I'm sure Brandon's the same way. You just go fish, and you're not going to do anything. I mean, what am I going to do extra? I don't know how to fish any different, So
you don't make business decisions. Dale Gleason called it that on Fork. He said on Fork he needed a certain weight. He said he pulled out a shaky head and he made a business decision to get a $10,000 check. He knew he wasn't going to win. He knew he wasn't going to, catch Live a Sea or be in the top 10. But he said he made a business decision to secure the coin. You fish one way, the same way. Like there's no, hey, let's fish for points here. I think I can safely catch 15, but I'm taking 18 out of the equation. You just one way for you, as much weight as possible.
I don't know anything about a business decision. I just go fishing. Yeah. I mean, like I said, I don't set goals as far as like, this is what I have to do, and this is the way it's got, and I want to do this. And I'd love to win an Angler of the Year. But, at the end of the day, if I go out there and I fish as hard as I can possibly fish, and what else can I do, I mean, I don't know how any other goal is going to match that. So, yeah, I just go I mean, there is times where it's just like, I know they're probably not going to bite this crankbait. I should pull out a worm and just get a few because, I'm going to catch some. Maybe that's kind of a business decision, I guess. I'm not sure what that means, but.
That's what he meant. He knew he wasn't going to top 10 because of what he's doing, but he thought, hey, here's a way I can get a check, and I'm going to fish for a check.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that. But, yeah, I've sit there and been aware that my bite might be going away, and I need to just get a couple bites, doing else and do that. But as far as fishing any different for the last 2 tournaments, no, I'm not going to fish any different. I mean, it's what got you there. There's nothing to change.
All right, can we? I want to get into a little bit of technique stuff, some cranking stuff. The BTL. We do 3 E's: entertain, educate, and engage. And I want to get into the education part here, cranking wise. I was thinking back, you know, we all have boxes in our boats, right? And you can tell which ones you use because they're usually in like disarray. They're the ones that are just you're like, man, I've used that a lot. Well, I was going through my stuff, trying to get ready ahead for the open on the Chesapeake, and I went through which would be like the Little John DD, the 5XD, the DT14 box, like that, just the normal size cranking box that should be in the rotate. Dude, I opened it up and it had that slight tinge of must. You know, one of those boxes that you haven't opened in a hot minute, and you're like, ooh, it's a little bit sour because it's been closed for so long. And I was like, I feel like I've got to be missing something because this is the bread and butter crank. Like, this is the crankbait that I used to throw all the time. And I'm like, dude, I haven't gotten on a good like DD bite or a DT14 or a 5XD bite. And I'm like, this is a freaking juice here. Like, how have I not thrown this in the last couple years? I mean, you've made a lot of money in that depth range, haven't you?
At times, but I mean, it's like a very narrow window now that we ever fish where I've got to throw a crankbait. You know, it's I haven't caught them on I caught some at Fork and Pickwick, but before that, you know, I'm thinking back to maybe Cayuga since I've caught them deep cranking. You know, so it's not a very often thing. Every year I got on tour catching a big plug, but there's certain times they'll bite it, but it's very, very minimal when we go fish those type of tournaments.
All right, so maybe that's not just me. Maybe I'm not missing the bite. Maybe I just haven't fished tournaments where that's the deal. So, like, that's your strength, and you've done it twice in the last 5 years?
Did it twice this year, Pickwick and Fork, and thinking back, I mean, I can't really remember what the last – maybe I can't remember what time of year we fished Gunnersville, so maybe a Gunnersville and then a Cayuga. So if you get it in once a year, it's pretty good, you know, but I can remember there have been several years where we didn't even fish a deep crankbait because we didn't go to any of those lakes to do that with.
All right. I want to ask you a question on color. So seared into my memory is Keith Combs saying chartreuse powder blueback in every single interview he did for about 5 years. So I somehow got into my head that the only color fish will eat is chartreuse powder blueback. What are your thoughts on color on that mid-depth to deep diving plug? Does it matter at all, or is this an angler mentality thing where as long as you have confidence in it, they'll eat it?
It's situational and location. I mean, in Texas, it seems like they really bite a chartreuse powder blue. In fact, I think that's what I caught some of my fish on at Fork. But if you go to like Douglas Cherokee, Chickamauga, you know, I think Pickwick, I think you need more shad type, natural type looking crankbaits. So, but pretty much, you know, people ask me all the time what you got crazy colors crankbaits, and I've got, like, if you see in my boxes of crankbaits, the right side's going to be chartreuse ones, the left side's going to be shad ones every time. And I don't have like a bunch of different crankbaits. You know, if we go up north, I might have like a perch colored one, but I don't carry like a bunch of different colors. I'll carry a white flash like a Tennessee shad. I'll carry a bunch of green gizzards for like a real natural, you know, clear water deal. And then I've got some chartreuse ones on the other side, chartreuse blue and sexy shad. And that's about it.
All right. Hit me with the basics. Like if you're putting together that cranking box, 2 or 3 of the best ones that you're always going to have. Like, I don't care who you're sponsored by. Like, no one just throws one type of plug. Like I mean, I've seen the best in the business have it. Just throw 2 or 3 different ones. Which ones are you building a box around?
Are you talking about shallow crankbaits or deep crankbaits?
Deep crankbaits, like that 12 to 16 foot range. 12
to 16, and I mean, I've got a 5XD in there. I've got a 6XD in there. I've got a DT16, possibly DT20. A Little John being there, DD Little John. You know, that's the thing about it is there's not a whole lot of really good deep crankbaits that I can now off the top of my head that I'm thinking about. But you know, that's the standard. All the Strike. I'm not sponsored by Strike King or Spro or anything, but they run good, and I catch a lot of fish on each one of those brands. So that's probably my main ones. And David Fritz's Rapala series, that's some of the best crankbaits ever made. You know,
the old ones.
The old ones, yeah. I'm not sure if there's any difference between the the DT series old and DT series new, but anything that he puts his name on with a crankbait is usually really, really good. And I've talked to Mercer about that. I think that's more impressive than him winning all these tournaments is how good the crankbaits he can design.
He's done the DT series. Obviously, let's see. He started with the Pose, right?
Yeah, but I don't think he designed the Pose. But
He just made him famous?
I think he made them famous and custom a lot of them.
Okay.
I'm not sure if he ever designed those.
So the DT series, and then also the the Dredger and all that with Berkeley, and then the Fritz side stuff. That's quite a legacy. I mean, think of all the thousands of fish that whole line has caught that he's designed. You ever fish with him?
No, that's my bucket list. I'd like to fish with him.
Dude, I'm sure you could just ask him.
You know what's funny? He told me we were fishing St. Lawrence, I think, and he told me this could be his last year. He's going to retire. Could be. He said he didn't know 100%, but he was thinking about it. And I told him we were eating dinner at the Classic this year, and I told him, I said, let's go fishing one day. Let's just go somewhere and wind the plug around. And he said, yeah, okay. He said, we'll do that. So I would love to go with him just one time because, I've still got like a David Fritz Bassmaster magazine from '94 that's got Fritz cranking tips in it. And I don't know why I've always liked fishing crankbaits. It's probably because it's strong in our area, but it's like nothing. I was always just fascinated about throwing a big plug, and I did it so many times at the wrong time of year trying to catch them on it around here. But I can't tell you why that's always been a part of me, but it's just I've loved throwing a crankbait.
Fritz has been I've been in the boat with Fritz a couple times, not by his choice, but because of media events back in the day where you get paired with them, right?
Yeah.
So the two things that I've done with him is we did the cranking on Toledo Bend back when it was decent and you could catch him, and he does that thing where he cranks with the braid and he puts the rod against his inner thigh while he sits down, and it's just really cool. And then the other thing was he showed me how to use a flasher on the boat. And he's like, I know there's some hard stuff here, and jumped up. So it was really cool. You need to just ask him, dude. I interview guys and they're like, oh, I'd really like to fish with so-and-so. And I'm like, you're friends with that guy, right? And they're like, yeah. And I was like, why don't you guys just, stick around a day and actually jump in the boat with each other?
Mm-hmm.
You learn a lot from it.
I've got so much respect for a lot of the older guys too. I'd love to fish with some of them, just to fish with them. Best
Fritz story I have, he said one time he was in a tournament, and this was back when they did total weight to make the Classic. Remember that? When it was just total weight. Anyway, had a decent first day, broke down on the second day, only had one fish, a 4-pounder. Said he called it might have been the very early years of Trip, or right before Trip, and said, hey, I got one fish. Screw it. I've had a horrible day. I'm not weighing it in. Bring my conversion van down to the ramp, whatever. He was pissed off. He chucked his fish. Cost him the Classic.
Oh, no kidding. One fish.
That one fish. And he could have gotten it in for it. He threw it. He missed the Classic by 2.5 pounds that year. And he had a 4-pounder in the box and just mailed it in. He said, I'll never do that.
That's crazy.
Since then, when he was in the hunt.
It's crazy how dominant he was from mid-'80s till about 2000. I mean, seemed like him and Clun won everything from that 15-year stretch through there.
Yeah, it does. I didn't realize you were such a finesse guy.
You got to do everything in East Tennessee, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the way I grew up fishing, was just worms and stuff.
Does it surprise you? You're out there offshore a lot. You see a lot of guys. Although I think a lot of guys are kind of intimidated by fishing around you. I've heard a couple you running guys off of, to pick in the areas. Not in a bad way, just you're very you have a strategy offshore as far as protecting your stuff.
I don't have a strategy, but here's the deal. I'm not going to pull up on you and fish beside you. You ain't going to pull up on me and fish beside me. I'm going to respect, your boat number. If that be the case, then what's good is a boat number. If your boat number 1, you got a really good hole you want to go to, and the 75th guy is just going to pull up next to you, that ain't going to happen. Because if I'm boat 75 and you're there before me, I'm going somewhere else, no matter how good the place was. unless it's like my roommate Drew Benton or something where
Yeah.
he's out there and he said, "Come on in, let's fish together." I might do that, but it's extremely hard for me to fish around anybody, and it's just like I don't want to do that to anybody else, and I don't want them to do that to me.
Cut and dry, easy.
Yeah, it's easy. I'm not going. I mean, you can remember if you want to, but I'm not going to pull imp on you and fish beside you.
Fair point. So anyway, offshore, you have to have noticed though, there's a lot more guys using finesse stuff. Like I think at the professional level, and we're seeing what we're doing in the opens with all of the international anglers, specifically the Japanese anglers, who are bringing crazy finesse techniques over, and just the consistency with which they're qualifying for the Elite Series and dominating the opens is impressive. Do you think we're trending way to the finesse side for the next couple years offshore?
We have been for a while, and that goes with mapping and electronics and how good everything is. Because you mentioned flashers. I can remember I had a flasher up until side imaging came out. I never did have an LCR. So when side imaging came out is when I took my flasher off. So everything's so much better now, and it's harder for them to hide on places, and so they get beat to death. So obviously finesse can come into play on offshore places.
I mean, you look at how some of the top tens and things have been won. It used to be, I remember it'd be crazy, like, oh, that guy's throwing a spinning rod offshore on Pickwick. But now it's like, that guy's power fishing. Like, he didn't have a drop shot. He didn't have a Nico rig. He didn't have a big net in his arsenal. Like, it's almost flipped to where, what used to be just, I'd say 5-6 years ago was really abnormal. And that's where you had like the Aaron Martins and stuff, the guys who would do non-traditional stuff on power fisheries. And now you see everybody with the dang spinning rod offshore.
Yeah. And it's just the pressure they get now. And sometimes that's the only way you can get a bite.
All right. Well, I can't believe we hadn't had you on BTO before. I greatly appreciate you coming on. I like your take on things. I like your thoughts on the opens. Definitely not perfect, but yeah, I don't know. I don't know if there is a right answer. I think that's why this generated so much discussion for it.
I'm not sure. I hope it, like I said, I just hope it gets back to where somebody like me can make it and not have to fish 9 of them.
Yeah. I think they have an opportunity to restructure the Bass Nation, make that to where, you have your path through the Bass Nation, to where if you are a teacher, if you can't get off the time, there's still spots available through the Bass Nation, like a Caleb Summerall, like a Brandon Polinick, like that.
Mm-hmm. I know nothing about the Nation. I never fished.
That's what I'm saying. It's been like it's mysterious. It's kind of like the Knights Templar of bass fishing. You know what I mean? It's like every state is mysterious.
Yeah, I've never did fish any Federation clubs. I mean, we pretty much around here we just had like a couple different tournament trails that went to 2 different lakes. So, the only thing I knew going into fishing my open stretches were Cherokee and Douglas, and I think that's why. You talk about how good a rookie year I had, but dude, man, I ran off like 5 or 6 checks in a row my rookie year. But then again, the other ones I'm finishing like 105th and 80, and it took me a lot longer to get comfortable with everything because I had no experience outside of East Tennessee, and it gives you a good base, but until you get out there and fish grass and those other places, then it's just such a learning experience.
It's absolutely crazy, your stats. Now, granted, there's certain events over the last couple of years that you got a portion of your check back. Like, even if you finish last, you get $2,500 back out of your $5,000. I'm sure that I have no idea. That's got to be something for like interest for Bassmaster to be able to accrue and then give you part. I don't know how that works.
What was that again? Like 20. So
well, there was that year where like even you pay like the $5,000, but then you'd get $2,500 back, right?
Oh.
Like they paid out the full field. Instead of just saying, hey, pay $2,500, they made you pay $5,000, and then they're like, hey, show up, we'll give you $25 back, and you feel better about yourself.
I don't think I got one of those. But
well, that's my point on this. So outside of an 80th to kick off the 2021 season,
I broke down there. So
you broke down there?
Yeah, I didn't even get to weigh in.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Did you have enough to secure a decent check?
Never got to fish.
Oh my gosh.
Never got to fish. I got to, and it was just a freak thing. I go down there and I ran to my first spot, and we had like a 3.5 hour fog delay already.
Okay, I remember that one.
Yeah, and I go to my first spot, and I fish it for maybe 5-10 minutes, and then I'm running to the next one, and my motor just bogs down and will not start, won't come on, and I couldn't figure out what was going on. And when I guess it's when the motor was getting put together or something, there was a hose that just barely was on there, and somehow that fuel line hose come off. So it wasn't getting any fuel. So I didn't get to fish. So they finally figured it out like 2 o'clock, which gave me like an hour to go fishing, and I lost one fish. So I lost pretty much that whole day.
Still made the Classic, though, that year.
Yeah.
Yeah, I finished, like, I think, mid-30s. Okay, so let's take that out of the equation. Let's just pretend like that event didn't happen. That's the joys of being the uncontrollable variables in it.
Oh, yeah.
Dude, so outside of that one, you have cashed a check with only one 2,500, like every single time you have launched your boat with Bassmasters since the Mississippi River event in 2018. Every single time you've launched your boat, you've gotten at least $2,500, and the majority are $10,000 or more. Like, go look at those stats. It's absolutely insane. That's like the rest of 18, all of 19, all of 20, all of 21, and so far, every single tournament this year. Like your dollars per launch, like you can take that on the top, astronomical. There's not too many guys that are actually making money just straight on earnings based on their dollars per launch, and you're one of the few guys that is.
Dude, I did it for even getting 5 or 6 checks a year. I mean, I didn't have any other income growing, my rookie year, so I've always made it with my stick. And finally, now that 9 years into it, it's the first, for the last 4 years, I've been able to breathe a lot easier, and it's been a lot easier. And we can actually rent houses now to stay in instead of sleeping in the back of the truck. So it's been good. I've been blessed, and I got to give, I tithe every 10% I make in fishing back to the church. And, it's no doubt it's been a blessing to me, and that I'm able to do it. And that's why, it's what I do. So I've been, like I said, it's been blessed. I'm lucky to be here, and everything had to line up perfectly for me to get here. And I can remember back in 2011 or 12, I won a Ranger boat and a Classic here on Cherokee and Douglas. I had one day on Cherokee, one day on Douglas, and won a brand new Ranger boat. I fished out of an 18.5-foot Triton for like 13 or 14 years. I won a brand new Ranger boat, and I was able to fish out of that boat. It's a bigger boat, had a 225 on it. I was able to fish out of that boat in the opens for a year, qualified, and then sold that boat for my entry fees first year on the Elite Series. So if you look at it, man, it lined up just perfectly. And if God had a plan, it couldn't have worked out any better for me, because the things put in my life, you look back and how perfect everything was. We're meeting Aaron and just luckily at a boat ramp. If I miss that by 15 minutes, my life's totally different,
Wow.
And, winning that boat, and then that's my entry fees for the first year. Everything just lined up perfectly. So I give back 10% of every tithe, every 10% of every check I ever get.
It's good stuff, David. Anything else you want to get in here before I let you go?
No, man. I'm happy to be on. I'm glad you had me on, and hopefully we finish the year out strong and run back here to get dove season underway, because we got like 3 days after. I got to get back within 3 days after Mississippi River to go down there and shoot some doves. So we got and some geese too. So it's going to be a busy next 3 weeks.
Good stuff. All right, take it easy. Drive safe up there to Oahe in South Dakota. That's a hell of a drive.
Yeah, we're going fishing up there, not duck hunting.
I gotcha. All right, take care. Have a good morning.
You too, bud.
That was David Mullins. And like I said, it's weird in this game. You really get to know certain guys, and then you have other guys who run in different circles, and you just don't get to know them. And they're good dudes. Like, I'm really tight with Bradley Hallman. He's always talking to David Mullins. I didn't realize it. I guess David was on Castle Dice stream last night, and I'm sure they went down I know they had to have gone down some rabbit holes, because that's all Castledine does is go down rabbit holes and then digs the rabbit out and then finds another rabbit hole, goes down that one. But David's one of those guys I've never really gotten to know, I guess, on a personal level. Professionally, I've interviewed him a couple times, but second to Clark Wendlet a couple years ago in the Angler of the Year race, and now he's second to Brandon Polinick with 2 left. But always admired the way he fishes, and I wasn't sure like how to approach it, but I know some of those guys have talked, and it's never in a negative way. Like there's some guys that are like, oh, that guy's a real and I hate when I have to fish around him, and it's never that way when they talk about Mullins. It's more like, dude, like, you get around that guy offshore and he doesn't put up with anything. Like there's no moving in on him. If it's his deal, he takes care of business. He handles it. And I know that has intimidated some of the other guys out there on the Elite Series, you know, who are around having beers, and they'll tell stories of Mullins and how focused and driven he is on the water, you know, right, wrong. He does what he thinks is right every time. And they're like, man, he said it's kind of intimidating when he's out there doing his thing and he has his pattern and he thinks that you kind of got in on his water. So, like I said, it's interesting in fishing. Like, so if the water's your playing field, take this for instance. So like hockey, right? You have like enforcers. What are enforcers? Enforcers are guys who are agitators. They fight, but like off the water, they're often like the most charitable, the most well-liked, signed autographs, do stuff with fans, go to the hospitals, all this. Baseball, all this stuff, you have like on the field, you've got your persona, and then off the field, like you're a totally different person. Well, there's no problem if like you have beef with guys on the other team, with your opponents and stuff like that. It's supposed to be that way, right? Like, oh, that guy's a competitor. That guy, he knows what his job is. He gets it done. But then you have like sports where there's like no helmets or no, I guess you want to say like constriction, like you're not in an arena, you're not on a diamond, you're not in a ring. And it's the exact same thing, but it seems like the attributes on the playing field are then bleed over and attributed to the person off the playing field. So like I take like Edwin, for example, like he's like a super fierce competitor on the water, crazy stuff like that, but super cool off. It's just an interesting dynamic as to how guys are looked at on the water and off the water. But respected, I think, both on and off the water a lot is David Mullins, and I greatly appreciate him jumping on. All right, we talked a few numbers then. When we come back from our final break, we're going to talk more numbers. Like I said, the BPT came out with an article right before this event started on Champlain, or on Cayuga, sorry. The 2023 Bass Pro Tour requalifications. But I want to put it all together because you have some crazy stuff going on that link the current Bassmaster Open standings with the final pro circuit standings combined with the current BP Bass Pro Tour standings, to where this thing is going to be crazy as to who's in and who's out and what decisions certain guys make based on what they fish next year. So BTL on a Monday, we'll come back with some confusing numbers right after this. Have you considered purchasing new electronics for your rig? The type of mounts you choose to protect your investment should be part of the decision-making process. No matter if you prefer 1, 2, or 3 graphs up front, Beatdown Outdoors has a solution for you. Adjustable, versatile, rigid, and made in the USA. What's your ultimate electronics setup? Check out the full selection of Beatdown Outdoors products by visiting beatdownoutdoors.com.
Get the best patterns backed by tournament data. Start by finding the best 10% of your lake. Know exactly what to look for and what to throw. After that, just put them in the boat. Try the Deep Dive app today.
Look at that beast right there.
Elite Series Pro Daryl Gleason here. My Pro Guide batteries keep me going on those long tournament days and long practice days. Always plenty of juice, never fail. The best part about Pro Guide batteries, it's the people behind the company. They have over 40 years experience in the battery business, keeping all of us fishermen out on the water longer, catching more fish. Check them out at ProGuideBatteries.com.
What's up, Bass Talk Live fans? Brandon Polinick here. And ever since I won a couple Bassmaster Elite Series events on X-Zone Lures, I've been getting a bunch of questions of what makes them so special and different. And really, the truth is, it's in the details. The little details, things like no cheap fillers in their plastic. That gives you more lifelike action, more realistic and vibrant colors. But don't just take my word for it. Go to www.xzonelures.com and check them out for yourself.
Vibrating jigs are a great choice for any time of year, and the Gamakatsu swim-on is a perfect match for any vibrating jig. 2 sizes and the unique tail design gives it a bait fish profile and a great swimming action for realism. There are 17 colors. See them all at bigbitebaits.com. The Spro Little John crankbait has been around for almost 15 years, and it is one of my go-to crankbaits whenever I need a fish in the boat, so you can never have enough new colors. That's why Spro's coming out with a handful of new colors, including Pearl Shad, which has this bleached out white look, but it's got this pearlescent, really pretty. We've got Copper Shad, which looks amazing in the water. It's got that purple flake on the back, really pops in the water. And then if you want some real pop, we've got Sparkle Shad, nothing but sparkles all over this thing. And then last but not least, we've got the matte Sexy Shad, just a really different looking color for a crankbait. So you want to give them a little different look, that matte Sexy Shad is definitely the one to go with. All these colors are available in the original Little John and the MD.
Combining one of the most popular hook styles with Gamakatsu's beefier Superline offering, the Gamakatsu Superline Offset Round Bend delivers the strength necessary to target big fish in heavy cover. Well suited for braided line and heavier fluorocarbon, the Gamakatsu Superline Offset Round Bend is built using stronger Superline wire that allows anglers to easily fish a finesse worm around heavy cover. The round bend offers a larger bite area, perfect for any worm presentation, while increasing your hookup ratios. The newly enhanced Z-bend holds your plastics on the hook longer, reducing the number of pull-offs and reducing damage to plastics. Available in 2/0, 3/0, 4/0, and 5/0, this is the most durable worm hook, designed for heavier lines that hold your bait on longer.
Preparation is key to success. And that preparation starts well before you ever hit the water. You're only as strong as your connection to the fish, and your line is that critical connection. Confidence in your line every minute of every day on the water is a necessity, and failure, it's not an option. Sunline makes the fluorocarbon, nylon, and braided lines to give you the strength to guarantee your confidence.
All right, welcome back to BTL, closing things out. I didn't know how long this was going to take, so I didn't want to keep David Mullins waiting, so we're doing the numbers now. I've spent like a lot of time trying to figure out all these different scenarios, and then our great viewers and listeners even added another wrinkle into it. So let's start with the easiest here, and that is a article that came out, I believe, on the 4th, 2023 Bass Tour re-qualifications on the line as the season enters the final 2 stages. And I have to give it to MLF and the BPT for laying it out. Hey, here are the guys who are on the chopping block. Here's what they have to do. Here's the qualifying process. Here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on how it qualifies. Now, whether you agree with whether it's a 1 or 2 years and what they've told guys and not told guys, that's neither here nor there. We have it laid out. I would love Bass to do that. I know that there are guys on the Elite Series who the last couple years have really stressed out. Carl's one of them. As to, are they in the next year? Are they not out? How many anglers are it? How are they going down the list? How are they not going down the list? So for someone like me in the industry who's trying to figure this out, talk about it, and give you guys, the listeners, the viewers, something to watch for. Is your favorite angler on it? Is your favorite angler safe? I love watching the PGA Tour at the end of the year. They just did it. They just had it. The year's ending, and they have the guys who are requalified, the guys who are out, and they're making putts in the final, and they're 120th in the point standings on the PGA Tour. And if they make this putt, they're good for next year and they're exempt. And if they're not, if they don't have any exemptions, they got to go back to the Corn Ferry Tour. And no one wants to spend their entire life on the Corn Ferry Tour. So Major League Fishing. So here it is. So it comes down to you can go back and see all of it is, but it talks about the requalifying structure and how it all works. So at the bottom now you've got Jeff Crete, Kelly Jordan, Crochet, Duckett, McClellan, Jason Lambert, Shaw Grigsby, Paul Elias, and it spots 71 through 80. But then you have pro circuit spots. So you had 3 that finished in the top 10 that are currently on the BPT in Dakota Ebert, Justin Lucas, and Michael Neal. So that saves 3 anglers that would have gotten booted off because instead of going down the list, they just cut it off at 10. So there's only 7 invites for the BPT next year that are going out through the pro circuit. So that goes down through the 73rd. Now, this is where things get interesting, because there's 2 stops left on the BPT. This week, the slugfest that's going on at Cayuga, and then they go to Mille Lacs up in Minnesota. Now, I haven't talked to any of these guys. I have no idea what it is. They could just be fishing the Bassmaster Opens because of the joy for pure competition level, and either that or they've never looked at the payouts. But you've got Cody Meyer, who is 4th in the Bassmaster Northern Opens to qualify for the Elite Series. Now, they will only take 3 out of each division this year, so he does have to finish in the 3rd because all double qualifiers go to the overall payouts. Then you have Keith Poche, who's alive in 2 divisions still, and he's also 3rd in the overall. He's been fishing them all. He's been driving all over the dang country, bringing a little aluminum boat to the Bassmaster Opens. We had an interview with him about a month ago where he went in depth on his strategy for that for the Opens. And then you have Zach Burge, who's down in 10th in the Southern Opens. He was actually in it for the overall, dropped out of that. You can go listen to Luke Duncan's podcast if you want to know that whole scenario on over that, but he is 10th on it. So should Meyer, Poche, or Burge make the Bassmaster Elite Series, opt to take that invitation and not fish the BPT, that'll drop down some other BPT qualifiers because it will take a couple that will get knocked out. So there's a potential for 3 more there. Then out of the 7 pro circuit qualifiers from the 2022 season, see if I can pull that one up right here too. You have 2 of those anglers who are also in prime position to qualify for the Bassmaster Elite Series through either the Central or Southern Opens. You have both John Hunter and Nick LeBrun, who qualified for the 2023 Bass Pro Tour, but also are currently on the MLF Pro Circuit, but also have a legitimate shot to make the Bassmaster Elite Series. You have John Hunter, who's 4th in the Southern Opens, and he finished 8th in the Pro Circuit, and you have Nick LeBrun, who's 2nd in the Central Opens and finished 6th in the Pro Circuit. So depending on how those points shake out, you could have 2 of those anglers who opt to go to the Elite Series. So let's say everyone opts to go to the Elite Series. You're already down to 73rd with the 3 double qualifiers in the Pro Circuit. You have the 3 BPT guys in Burge, Poche, and Meyer who go to the Elite Series, and then Hunter and LeBrun. Like I said, this is all hypothetical, folks. Haven't talked to any of these guys. I just like numbers. So 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There's 78 out of the 80. Basically, everybody requalifies. Then you add in Timmy Horton's retirement, which he was on the show. We had his first interview after he retired, and that goes down to 79. So really, the BPT doesn't cut anybody this year, and everybody gets invited back. Let's say everybody who doesn't, you could have Meyer, Poche, and Burge not make it. A couple of them make it and opt. So there are all sorts of scenarios, and there's still 1 BPT left and 4 opens left. So a lot of stuff on the table, but a lot of the decisions on whether guys will get booted, how many guys will be invited back on the Elite Series too. Here are the 5 main players on what they knew. Right now, it would be Cody Meyer, Keith Poche, Zach Burge, John Hunter, and Nick LeBrun. So those 5 guys are kind of the axis of who's in, who's out, what's going to happen in 2023 in the world of professional bass fishing. That makes sense at all? I hope that made sense. Made sense in my mind. So tomorrow, we have a very interesting show tomorrow. We're going to continue with kind of a spotlight on taking people who are experts in the field, breaking it down so you kind of understand what's going on behind the scenes. I said we did it with Matt Looney with Pro Guide Batteries. We've done it with Sid Reeves with Spro. We've done it with Denali Rods, where I basically asked questions that I've always wanted to know and dumb questions so you get a better understanding behind the scenes in the industry. Jim Van Ryn from X-Zone. X-Zone is going to come on, and I think they've done a really good job of amassing a really good pro staff. Obviously, Carl and Brandon Polinick, and I actually called up Brandon and Carl and talked to him about it, and they said, yeah, dude, he'd be great to go on. They're great to work with as far as feedback and how things, but I want to know and dive into tomorrow on the importance that success at the professional level on baits, on TV, on FS1, in Bassmaster Magazine, on the BPT has on a company like X-Zone when it comes to moving product, when it comes to selling, and the value of working and having a great relationship with your pro staff. So Wednesday, still working on the show. I've got a couple really cool ideas to go in on that. I got a couple guests that I'm really that I've really been working on for a while. So optimistic that that will come through. But Thursday, back with another day 4 from Frank Scalish. And I think that's about all we got. Once again, big shout out to the one and only David Mullins in his quest for his first Bassmaster Angler of the Year. He's got like 40 points on Brandon Polinick, and Brandon's pretty good at the next 2 fisheries, the Wahi and the Mississippi River. So, but hey, you got to play the game, man. You got to play the game to see what happens. So this has been BTL on a Monday. We'll see you guys tomorrow.